Today, I wanted to do something a little bit different. We've got this cool design challenge from DevEd, and it's to design an entire website using only one color. And I'm thinking I might use the color purple. Purple is Florin Pop's favorite color, and today's his birthday, so maybe we'll design a whole website around just that. If you haven't already, hit like and subscribe. My name's Adrian, I do videos around design development and all that jazz, so let's just jump straight into it. Alright, so here we have a beautiful picture of Florin Pop, and what we're going to do is copy this picture out, and we're going to paste it here into Remove BG, which is a cool website which removes backgrounds. Now with that done, we've got a nice background removed of Florin Pop, and we're going to paste this into Figma and start designing something cool with the color purple. Now, this could be a number of things. I'm just thinking maybe something like a personal website or something like that. Not too sure yet what I'm gonna do for this, but let's get started and see what we can create. So normally when I'm designing, I like to get some source material, and in here we've got a lot of uses of different videos and stuff that Florin's already done in the past. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna take a screenshot of this, and I'm gonna utilize some of these colors and stuff that are using in the Figma file. In this case, I'm just going to paste this in and resize it. And now we've got some good use cases of what colors we can apply. Now in this case, we've got a strong purple. So I'm just going to write in here as a title, Florin Pop, and utilize this nice purple color. I think this is the purple that we'll use for the rest of our design. And it's a strong, nice shade of purple there. It's not too bright or anything like that. So I'm pretty happy with that. Let's make that a little bit larger and bigger, and we're gonna increase the font size to maybe 96 in here. Maybe that's a little bit too much, so I'm gonna reduce it down just a little bit now, maybe 24. 24 pixels should be just about right. Let's also create a box here in the background, and seeing that we've already got a cutout of Florin, we can overlay this a little bit. We can utilize that purple color once more, since this will be essentially the color that we'll be using for this design. Great. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this now, and we'll start designing the whole website around this. So with this purple box, I might grab another version of it here, and I'll give this one a slightly darker tint. So maybe somewhere around here like this. And what we can do is we can do a number of things here. We can put in an introduction to who Florin Pop is. We can do a birthday. Essentially the sky's the limit, but I still want to flesh out the layout here a little bit. So what I might do is I might just do a small header of 8 pixels there at the top. And with this section here, it's a little bit too dark. So I might do this as a linear gradient. Yeah, linear gradient sounds good. Let's reverse these two. So I'm gonna get rid of this one, put this one at the top. Great, so that looks good. And then if we take a look, let's put him up a little bit here. This linear gradient, we could probably push it up all the way to the top, or maybe we can move it down a little. We could even change the direction of it. So for example, instead of going from left to right, maybe we can get it to go on a different angle. So how do I do that in this? Oh, here we go. We've got this percentage. So I might just pull it in from the left and go to the right. That looks all right. I feel like it's missing something still though. I'm not quite sure what it is. We might have to play around with it a little bit. So I might create a second box here. And in this case, let's copy this out. All right, so I'm gonna create another version of it. And for this one, maybe I'll, instead of doing a linear, I'll do a radial, starting here from the middle. Not a radial, so sorry, yeah, radial. But how can we design this so that it works well? Don't really like any of these designs. Nope, none of this works. So I'm gonna get rid of that. I actually did like when there were 2 of them there. It gave it that stronger blend. So let's keep that. And let's go to Unsplash. And in Unsplash, we might grab a programming background. So maybe this one looks okay. I always like to grab the very first one. That's usually the most popular. This one here also looks pretty good, so I'm gonna grab that as well. And let's see if there's any others that might be useful in this case. This one too, this one looks pretty cool. So with these three in here now, we might just pull one across, and that should pop up any second now. So there it is. And I'm just gonna resize it down so it fits sort of behind one of our elements here. So in this case, what's one good element we can place it behind? All right, we'll place it behind here and see if we can mask it as well. We'll do use mask. And then how can I essentially, this mask isn't quite working the way I want. I think I have to apply these two and then use a mask. So let's try that. Yep, so that seems to have worked. And in here, we can now play around with this design a little bit more. So I'm just gonna double click and move it around, test it out. Let's resize this a little bit. So in this case, it's expanded out a little bit too much. Where's this image here? That's the image here. And what I might do is I'll resize this image maybe just to about here. That looks good. And maybe for the image, we might want it a little bit lighter. So I might give it an opacity of about 50%. Then for the background here, I might even move this up so that while it exists below our layer, it's giving that sort of a nice blend into our design. So that's looking good. And then finally, we can have a look at how we can overlay this a little bit better. So right now, Florin sort of exists outside of the whole section, but I'd like him to essentially exist a little bit overlapped. So maybe if we resize all these elements down a little bit, and then in here we can maybe create some sort of a box or something that he's standing on. I don't know. Let's just mess around with this until it looks good. So here we've got this box, and I'll use the color purple for it. That looks okay. Maybe I'll paste this a little bit below and then create another one in here. And this one will be a little bit darker, maybe that darker tint that we had earlier. So that looks okay. And then now that we've got that, and I sort of like the way this line is blending in, we can create a little section here, maybe a menu or something cool. Let's copy over this text we have up here and paste it in below, and we'll make this white. And here we'll go, social media, maybe that'll be okay. Or contact, support Florin. There we go. And then for support meme, we might have a small section here where we have a look at ways we can essentially allow him to be supported, I guess. But I'm still thinking we need this to be a little bit smaller because it's still a little bit too large. So that's looking a little bit better. Let's make Florin a little bit smaller there as well. And move all these sections up a little bit. Now this design, the frame's a little bit small, so I'm also going to expand it out a little bit. I always like when the frame's a little bit bigger than we need. I'm going to increase it to 1440. It's a little bit better, and let's zoom in here a little bit and see how else we can play around with this design. So still with this design, I'm not too happy with how most of the layout is. Like, I do like the fundamentals of it, but I feel like it's still missing something. I'm not sure yet what that might be. We can play around with it a lot here, but essentially we've got this header section, and this header section is working already just fine. We could even minimize this font a little bit down, maybe down to 30 pixels. And we'll have a logo that we'll add in here. Let's see if there's any logos we can utilize from Florin. I think sometimes he's got a little programming image he likes to use. So let's go to Florin Pop, and yeah, maybe we'll just use this one here to start off with. So let's paste that in. We'll create a little circle for that, and we'll mask it as well. So here's our little circle. And here's our image, and let's put our image just on top, and we'll create that mask once more. And for this mask group, let's resize that down just over here. So that's looking okay. Put Florin pop in here. Now, how can we design this whole section here to be way more cool? What I'm thinking is, let's expand this out here a little bit. Oops, let's expand out the whole group. I think I might put this rectangle in the group as well. So let's see if I can do that. Oh, yep. Okay, I can. We're going to increase that. We're going to increase that. And we're going to increase this image as well. Great. So we've got it here, Florin pop. I'm still a little bit confused on how we can do this design. I think I like this layout a little bit more now though. So that's starting to look a little bit better. Let's see. I think a nice box here, that might do it. So let's create a nice box here and we'll give it a bit of an border radius, maybe 15 pixels. And for this box, let's see how we can design this so that it'll be cool, right? So we could make it a blend of purple because that's what we're going after. So that's okay. Maybe we'll give it a 50% opacity and do another one here on top. And for this one, maybe we'll do that as white. And this one will be 75%. Whereas this one here in the back, maybe we'll do that as black. No, that doesn't look too good. What about if we just do plain white at 100%? That's okay. It seems to blend in not too badly. It depends on how large we do this, I suppose, but I think that's okay. So let's also create this image here at the top of this and mask it in. Just create a mask over here. And that rectangle has disappeared from me, so I'm gonna have to put that back in somewhere. Where is it gone? Remove mask? Can we remove mask? There we go. Anyway, let's resize this down then a little bit. What we'll do is, I think we've got the building blocks here, but this is harder than I thought it'd be. Let me have a think. Maybe what we could do is... Alright, I've got a bit of an idea I might play around with, which is using a vertical like side here. So we're going to have to skew it essentially. But let's do this skew here and see how it works. So maybe if I skew it like this, maybe just a little bit. Yeah, that looks okay. And then we can maybe shrink it down just a little bit. And maybe we'll create a couple of these. So the very first one might be white and the next one might be purple. And that way these two almost connect into the sections below each other. So that looks awesome. I'm happy with that. And now what we can do is we can maybe extend this out a little bit. So let's extend it out maybe to about here. Yeah, that looks all right. Maybe that's a little bit too much. Even like that, that's pretty good. So what we can do now with that is we could play around with how the styling is. We can put some overlay text in here. So for the overlay text, what we might do is welcome to my channel. We can now set this as white and it should look good regardless of where it is because both of these have high contrast. So I'm just going to put it in like this. And then maybe I'm Florin. That looks good. And then let's copy this down, make a smaller one. And in here, what we could do is we'll do a regular size font, maybe 33 pixels, 32 pixels. Yep, that looks good. And I do, what's programming? What's a good call to action? Maybe he already has one on the website here. Choose a job you love and work on it. Yeah, let's do that. So I'm gonna paste that in here. I'm gonna even make that a little bit smaller, maybe 24 pixels or, yeah, that should be okay. So let's copy that text in here. And this one can be a slight shade of purple. So let's find out the fill. And in this case, we want this purple, but we want a really nice shade of it. I might even get a slightly more pink tint to it, just so that it's standing out well. And I might also break the line a little bit earlier, and then we can make the font size a little bit bigger, maybe something like 30 pixels. Yeah, that looks good. So welcome, I'm Florin. Choose a job you love and you'll never have to work a day in your life. So that's a nice, cool message. Now, the next thing we want to do is have a nice call to action here. So I like these angled lines we're doing. We might continue on with that. So to do that, we're going to skew this out a little bit. Let's see if we can do that once more. I'm going to double click here. Let's recreate this box here because it's gone all wonky on me. And what I want to do is I want to, nope, that's not it. There we go. So I want to keep the skews just a little bit in like this, but that looks good. Maybe a little bit too much, so I'm gonna remove the skew just a little bit. We want it essentially to be the same as the skews that we're applying on the other sections. And maybe we'll follow in with that format. So we've got this white version, but this time we might overlay the back version with something darker, such as this darker tint. That way it can stand out a little bit more. So I'm pretty happy with that. There's a few ways we could do this. We could put it here on the bottom like this, or we could put it maybe even at the top. But for the time being, I think, let's see. Let's test out a couple of these and move them about and see which work. So there's that way of doing things. And for most of the website, I think that'll look good if we do it. We could always also skew it the other way. So we could skew it like this, for example. But that doesn't look as good as the original skew. Also, with the white section, I almost like it a little bit more when it's at the bottom, where the shadow is at the top. But it's hard to tell. We could always remove it altogether, or we could overlay it. And when it's overlaid, it looks a little bit like that. So maybe we'll stick with that for the time being. And finally, what we'll do is we'll add the text in here. So in this case, we want some text that'll be a call to action. So check out a YouTube channel. So maybe that'll be our call to text. So let's use that purple color. And I'm going to move this in here. And my YouTube channel. Great. So we've got this in here. We'll want this maybe a little bit smaller, so maybe 28 pixels, but a little bit bolder. And I want a little icon here. Might already have one, so let's have a look. I'm gonna put in YouTube in here and see if I've got a Font Awesome version of that. So let's have a look. YouTube, no, user, Font Awesome, where is it? Font Awesome free. Okay, let's try that. Whoops, it's gone. Let's go YouTube and do Font Awesome in here, brands. Nope, free, nope. All right, so that's not getting in at all. So I'm just gonna quickly jump over to Font Awesome and we'll search up the YouTube icon. Let's have a look over here. YouTube. And what we'll do is we'll just copy over an SVG of that one. So there's a couple here. I'm just gonna grab the very first one. And with this one here, we'll just download the SVG version of that and we'll jump back into our Figma file and copy paste this straight in. We'll be able to change the fill for this. So in this case, I'm just gonna do that purple fill again and that'll be simple enough. We'll resize that. And there, so that looks good. Well, let's make this button just a little bit bigger so we can get the text in there and can overlay it a little bit. So great, I'm just gonna fix up the spacing a little bit there, but that looks good already. Now let's add a bit of a menu up here. So for this menu, let's grab a darker tint of that purple and maybe we'll have something like home and we'll make this a little bit smaller. So I'm gonna make it maybe 24 pixels and it can start just here. That's a good point for it to start. Now sometimes you can do a couple of things, like for example, you could do a 1 pixel width line here that's very light, that separates out the sections. So that's something I usually like to do, just so the menu items have a clear line where they break. And then after home, we'll do maybe about me or timeline, because I noticed that's something that Florin likes to do on his website. So let's copy this one out. That's not working very well. Let's paste that out and move it here. Now what's another thing he does? I think he has a section on his website right now for his videos and for his projects. Let's do that. Let's do videos. And maybe another thing, maybe a cool button at the top, because that's pretty cool that we already have a button design here. In this case, for the button design, we'll use that cool purple color from the primary coloring, so that looks good. And the text can be white in this case. And then here, courses could be a cool button design we could implement. So we'll resize this down a little bit. Let's move this design over just a little bit smaller. And the back one here as well, a little bit smaller. And then we'll move courses here into the middle. There we go. And what we're missing now is the icon. So for the icon, we'll need a courses icon. We'll jump back into Font Awesome and maybe do study as an icon. Let's see what we'll get with study. That seems like a good one. Yeah, I like this one. So let's use this one here. I'm gonna grab this one, click download, and we'll put it straight into our design, and that should look pretty good. Let's click to download this one here, and I'm gonna just drag and drop it in. We're gonna have to make sure this one is white so that it sets well on the back of our background here, but I think it will, so that's already looking really good. We'll be able to delete the old icon we had here before. I think this was for the YouTube brands, and there we go. So let's move this button a little bit to the right there, just so that it's standing out okay, because if we keep it essentially in that corner there, it's not going to look very good. We essentially want it to sort of exist and look like it's an important call to action, but without impeding on the overall layout of this design. So I think that fits in really well. Now with that done, we can have a look at the next section of the website, which will essentially be this main section over here. And this is where we'll have a lot of the content. Let's have a think how we can design this. We could keep it with that primary purple color. We could overlay elements into that. Or we could even just have small subsections that we essentially create in each one of these, where we get the videos and content and stuff like that. Let's have a think on how we can do this. I think what would be really cool is if we had a section here for people to subscribe if they're viewing the website for the first time. So what I might do is I might design this slightly different. Maybe we'll do a stroke here and we'll do it with that purple color, but we'll do maybe a border radius, maybe 15 pixels. And the stroke can be a bit stronger, maybe 4 pixels. We'll let it bleed into the section above, so that way it sort of looks a little bit interesting. Let's move this below our elements. That way, there we go. Now it's got a bit of depth there, and I suppose we can consider how we'll design this. So we could design it in a number of ways. In this term, I'm not sure if this exactly works really well. We might even do a section here similar to what we've done previously. So we can copy over this element, for example. And what we could do is maybe have it exist a little bit differently. So in this case, let's see if we can move this out here a little bit and make it a little bit bigger. There we go. And for this element, we might make it a darker tint. So let's grab this darker tint over here. It's hard to play around with designs sometimes. Like, you have to figure out if they go this way or that way, if you want them to go sideways or forwards. Let's copy over this one here that we had as well. So I like that one with the button up here, simply because it seems to stand out quite a lot. So now I'm thinking maybe we just pull this one across. Oops. Let's double click here and see if we can just extend it out. So that looks good. If we're going to do these angles, so I should probably skew this one as well. So let's see if I can skew that. We'll double click on it. We'll hold shift here and we'll just skew it just the smallest amount so that we feel those skews happening everywhere, and it's got that sort of a branding happening. So that's cool. So for this skew over here, what we could do is we could do a nice large subscribe section. Oops, let's keep clicking until something works. And in here, I'm gonna copy over this big section and call this subscribe. And this is a little bit too big, so I'm gonna reduce it. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna copy over this layer as well and get the latest updates. What's a good subscribe message? Maybe there's already one we can utilize somewhere. Let me have a think. Maybe something simple like get the latest updates. That's nice and simple, right? And maybe we'll move this across a little bit. And we'll go here and we'll go envelope. We'll grab a nice email example icon and we'll use that to essentially improve our design a little bit. So I'm just gonna grab the very first one that I see, and this one looks okay. So I'm just gonna copy this one into the design over here and give it a quick test. We'll maybe make that a nice dark shade, or yeah, I think that's okay. We can leave that as this dark tint. Let's see what it looks like when it's white though. That looks pretty good as white, but it's too large. So when it's a smaller size, it looks a little bit better. And this font here, we can reduce this down maybe to 24 pixels. So that looks a little bit better. And this weight also is way too large, but that looks way better now. So now in here, we can maybe copy over this section. And here, maybe this can be the input. So we'll reduce the size of this a little bit. And then in here, we'll put in some text. So for the text, what I'm thinking is just maybe something like my email address. So let's put in my email address. And then we'll do this as a slight gray, simply because it's just placeholder text. So we want people to know they can click in here. And we might even copy over this envelope once more and put that in here as well. So in this case, I might also do it as a very light shade. There we go. And that way people maybe can put their email address in there. No, that doesn't look good at all, but I'll do that. So that makes more sense. And then we'll also create a button over here. So for the button, seeing that we've got an input, which is like this, we might have to do a dark version for the button, but we might have to give it an outline so people realize it's a button. So let's copy over this one we have here at the top, or even we'll just copy over this one actually, and we'll resize this a little bit smaller. Oops. And then here we'll change the color. We'll use that purple color that we've been using. And since that's a nice strong purple color, we should be able to essentially use a white font now, and that should stand out really well. So subscribe email. Great. Let's make this a little bit bigger. So I'm just gonna expand it out just a little bit more. And since it's a button and all our other button designs have that white background on them, we'll reuse that again. So let's copy this out, and I'm just gonna hold Control here. I can copy a version of it. I think I can anyway. Why is this not working? This worked before, but I'm doing something wrong here. Let me just play around with this until it works. There we go. We'll get a white version of it and we'll just paste it here. And then the other version of it, which was just below it. Where is it? We'll move this out of the way. about that. That sometimes is a little bit annoying to mess around with because I don't really spend that much time doing all the layers, but ooh, that looks good. Maybe if we resize it just a little bit, it gives it that little border. I like that border. And then we can pull the button into the end of the design there. That's one way to do it, but it's not consistent with the rest of our design. So we might just keep it like that to get started essentially. Now for this email, I don't really still like the color, so I'm gonna make it a nice shade here. So that's looking a lot better. And finally, with all of these sections here, I might reduce the height just a little bit because I feel like their height is a little bit too high. No, maybe it's fine. Okay, great. So we've got these sections in. We've got a nice header. We've got a nice call to action here to subscribe. And now we can finish off the bottom bit of this website, which is maybe adding some video or some content or some blogs. And we can do that in a number of ways. So yeah, let's have a look at that. What I'm thinking is we'll reuse one of these elements, but we'll make it a little bit smaller. And we'll have two sections in here. So maybe the first section can be essentially videos, whereas the other section over on this side can be the content itself, like blog posts and whatnot. So let's expand this out a little bit. Just gotta click in here. Yep. And that looks good. So that sort of seems to flow the same way. We'll also make this a slightly darker tint. And we'll reduce the height on both of these. So let's grab the height here and make them a little bit smaller. Now for this section here, I might use these as header sections and then do a nice purple header. So in this case, I'm just gonna grab some of the text we used earlier. I'm gonna change the color here to purple, and this can be like latest news. And these may be the blog sections. So do a little bit bigger of a text element here. And this will be also a lot thicker in terms of the font weight, maybe bold. And then over on this side, we can do latest videos. Great, so that looks good. Now for the latest videos, I suppose we could just pull out some of these. These are good examples of videos, I suppose. So I might just copy paste some of these into Figma, just so that we've got some content in here. And let's do another one. So what else do we have here? We'll do this one here, pop a question, real-time stream, coding in minutes. I like this one. So let's copy this one over as well. Great. And we'll jump this right into Figma here. So that looks good. So we've got our latest videos, and here for our latest news, we'll want images, we'll want some text, we'll want some descriptions. I think we might already have some content here, like the story behind the process. So let's copy over some of this stuff and move it in below. So I'm gonna copy just some basic text here that we can utilize. And we're probably also going to need a picture for this, but I'm not sure yet what we can use. Maybe we'll jump to the actual blog process. So here's an actual proper blog item. So I'm gonna copy that over here. Declare your love like a programmer. Great. And then let's grab some text from that item. So here's some basic text, and we'll put that here below. I'm just gonna give it some basic room, and this is way too large. I'm gonna do font size 18, font weight regular, and I might break the line breaks here. That looks better. And then finally, we'll grab this picture that we have, and this will be the picture for the news item. And this is way too large, so I'm just gonna resize this and put this in. So there's a number of ways we could do this. I personally think like a small picture with slightly smaller font, maybe 24 pixels, maybe 26 pixels fits in quite well here. This text can then shrink in a little bit better here. We might off black that to 666 as the hexadecimal section there, but otherwise that looks pretty good. So there's our design. We'll be able to fill out maybe some more metadata here below, such as maybe posted, what's the date for that one? There's no date. I don't know. Here, we've got a date, so Feb 14th. So let's put in here Feb 14th, 2020, and we'll move this down a little bit. Where's that gone? There we go. And this one here can be maybe slightly darker. Maybe we can do a bolder version. Yeah, it's up to you really how you decide to design the metadata, but I think that's clear enough. And then we can do a line break here. So for this line break, we might do a very light purple or a gray. We might shrink it down a little bit more as well, such as, I think 1 pixel would even be enough for this. And let's expand it out to be a bit wider. So I'm just going to expand this out a little bit, but that looks good. And then we can copy over a couple of news items here, so it gives the impression of more news. So let's do that. I'm just going to move this down, give it a little bit more spacing and room to breathe. But otherwise, I think that's starting to look good. Let's have a look at what the second article video here is. So I created a video every day. Let's put that in here. I created a video per day. There we go. And in this case, we'll just copy over some of the text we have in here as well. We'll place this text so that way that looks consistent. We'll resize this down because we don't want to utilize all the space in here. And obviously this does have a little bit too much text, so I'm just going to leave it like that. But that's a good starting point. We'll just need to copy over this image here and delete this one and maybe put this one in to replace it. But that looks good already. So here's our design that we've created. I hope that it gives you an idea of a nice purple design using only purple as the color, but you can see how the different tints and different colors really make it pop out a little bit more and make it look good. And I'm pretty happy with this one. Hopefully Florin likes it, but we'll see. We'll post it up on Twitter later on and see what he thinks. Anyway, my name's Adrian. If you haven't already, hit like and subscribe. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next one. Thank you.